When someone makes a mistake, we say it's part of being human. What happens when the mistake stacks up? Sure, we can say they're learning. Some lessons, though, seem to go unlearned. What if the harm isn't just to themselves? What if it becomes a chain reaction affecting everyone around them? How many chances do we give before it stops feeling like compassion and starts feeling like a burden? What if you're the one left picking up the pieces? Can you still show compassion? Or does there come a point where something has to change? Are we giving kindness a free pass? Or are we losing sight of accountability? When did understanding start meaning we're supposed to ignore the damage? Hi, it's me, Kimberly. Before we go any further, quick note. This podcast is for reflection and conversation, not professional advice. Take what resonates, what doesn't, and listen in a way that feels supportive for you. I've been sitting with a question lately, one that feels uncomfortable to ask out loud, but even harder to ignore. What do we do with people who don't just make mistakes, but repeatedly choose harm? And I want to be clear here. I'm not talking about misunderstandings, not bad days, not moments where someone reacts poorly, then reflects, repairs, and grows. I'm talking about a pattern of harm, people who consistently hurt others and then expect understanding instead of accountability. In my own life, I've seen this up close. I once had someone I looked up to tell me directly that they were using cancer as a trump card, got them out of anything out of accountability. And I watched it happen. This wasn't a one time situation, it was their thyroid issues, autoimmune disease, crisis after crisis, and behind the scenes, I watched something else happen too. They kept adding more and more to their plate, while everyone around them was expected to help manage the fallout. And if you didn't, well, they had every right to throw it in your face. Because how could you question someone who's dealing with something like cancer? And that's where things get complicated because illness is real, struggle is real, pain is real, but so is impact. I've also seen people hide behind other things, brain injuries, mental health diagnoses, labels. And to be clear, those things are real. They matter. They affect behavior in real ways. They are not a free pass to harm other people without accountability. Saying that wasn't me, it was my diagnosis might explain behavior. It doesn't repair it. And without repair, harm doesn't just disappear. It spreads. And this is where I had to turn the mirror to myself because it would be easy to only talk about what other people have done. I've had to face my own patterns. There are moments in my parenting that I'm not proud of, moments where I reacted instead of responded. It wasn't my complex PTSD that yelled at my daughter. It was me. It wasn't my diagnosis that led me to make choices I regret. That was on me. Now, when it comes to my complex PTSD, it explains why things felt so intense, why my reactions were bigger than the moment. It doesn't excuse them though. And that distinction matters. Because if I had to stop at, this is why I do it, I would never have changed. The truth is, I was always trying my best. At the same time, I was also causing harm. Both things can be true at the same time, and that's a hard place to sit in because it forces you out of the narrative that you're either the victim or the villain and into the reality that sometimes you're both. And I had to start making clear and real changes. Not just acknowledging the problem, but actively working to do things differently instead of swinging between passive and explosive. I had to learn how to be consistent, firm, calm, stable, not the fun mom all the time, but rather the safe mom, the predictable mom, the one my child can rely on, even when it wasn't easy. That meant making sacrifices, getting sleep, even when my nightmares made it hard, planning ahead, when I knew routines would be disrupted, saying no to things like playdates when my kid was needing to rest instead, choosing long-term stability over short-term comfort. And none of that was easy, but it was necessary because at some point I had to stop asking, why am I like this? And I had to start asking, what am I going to do about it? One of the biggest shifts for me came from something that felt confusing at first, but ended up changing everything. In those overwhelming moments, my body reacted like there was danger. There was something I needed to stop immediately. And to be fair, something there was dangerous. My toddler was running towards the street, climbing something unsafe, doing what toddlers do, exploring without understanding risk. My brain didn't see learning moment. It saw threat. It felt like I was fighting off a tiger to protect my child. But here's the complicated part. My reactions didn't match the situation because I was turning my child into the tiger. Because while the risk was real, my response came out of fear intensely, sometimes angry, not calm, not grounded. And that's when I had to slow down and separate two things. the situation, and my reaction to it. Yes, my child needed protection. She didn't need to be met with fear, though. She didn't need to feel like she was the danger. She needed guidance. She needed a parent who could step in, keep her safe, and still feel like a safe place to land. So I had to start reminding myself this isn't a tiger. This is a toddler. This is a child learning limits. My job isn't to stop the danger. It's to teach her how to move through the world safely without becoming afraid of it or of me. I had to face the uncomfortable truth. My child didn't need someone to control them. They needed someone to lead them. And I wasn't doing that as well as I thought I was. I wasn't managing my CPTSD because I didn't know how to. I was letting it manage me, and that's where it led me to get an autism evaluation. I realized why my complex PTSD was hard to manage was because I also have autism. I have ADHD, and it was really hard. And every time I pretended that I didn't have autism or do coping strategies that would help me, because you don't have autism, Kimberly, you're not valid into treating yourself this way, I would take a step back instead of two steps forward. And I had to realize it would have been so easy to shift the blame, to say, well, my child is difficult, to become passive aggressive, to fall into a narrative of just wait until you have a kid like you. But that wouldn't have been honest because the truth is, I do hope she has a child like herself someday. She's creative, she's curious, strong willed. She challenged me, she makes me laugh, she pushes me to grow. Those aren't flaws. Those are strengths. And if I couldn't handle those strengths, that wasn't a reflection of her. It was a reflection of what I needed to work on. And I think this connects to something bigger. People growing up powerless often struggle with power later in life. Because if you've never examined it, power can feel like something you're finally owed, like it's your turn. Uno reverse, bitches. Your turn to be in control. Your turn to not be the one hurting. But unexamined power doesn't heal pain. It just redirects it. And that's how cycles continue. Not because people are intentionally cruel, because they never stop to ask themselves if they were becoming what hurt them. Sometimes the hardest truth to face is this: it's easier to make someone else carry your pain than to sit with it yourself, because sitting with it means acknowledging things like, we were hurt by people you loved. You were shaped by things that weren't okay. And some things still live in you. Avoiding that truth doesn't protect anyone. It passes the damage along. And that's how cycles continue. Not because people are intentionally cruel, because they never stop to ask themselves if they are becoming what hurt them. Sometimes the hardest truth is this: it's easier to make someone else carry your pain than to sit with it yourself. Because sitting with it means acknowledging things like, you were hurt by people you loved. You were shaped by things that weren't okay. And some of those things still live in you. But avoiding the truth doesn't protect anyone, it just passes the damage along. Back to the question: what do we do with people who don't just make mistakes, but repeatedly choose harm? Confusing understanding with access. We can understand someone's past, their struggles, their pains, without giving them unlimited permission to stay in our lives while they continue to hurt us. We stop prioritizing comfort over accountability because holding someone accountable is uncomfortable. Setting boundaries is uncomfortable. You know what else is uncomfortable? Being the one who's getting hurt. And we start choosing boundaries, even when it's hard, even when it's messy, even when it costs us something, because harm doesn't stop because it's understood. It doesn't stop because someone has a reason. It stops when you no longer allow it to continue without consequences. And that doesn't mean we stop being compassionate. It means we redefine what compassion actually looks like. Sometimes compassion isn't staying. Sometimes it's stepping back, because breaking a cycle of harm isn't about proving how much you can endure. It's about deciding where it ends. Thanks again for listening to my rambles. Welcome to Thinking Out Loud. I'm Kimberly. I don't have all the answers, and I'm okay with that. If this felt familiar, uncomfortable, or oddly relatable, you're probably in the right place. If you're looking for a community of people navigating balance and asking honest questions, follow along. We'll keep thinking, we'll keep growing, and we'll keep asking questions together.